All right, you ready to do this? Let's hang on. Yeah, my unit was issued the VP9 on my deployment to Kazakhstan, was it Afghanistan? I don't know. It's all a fucking sandbox to me. My unit and I trained for months for this deployment. Sometimes you gotta kill the innocent person so that you can kill the bad guy, so that you can, you know, save the innocent person. Pretty sure that Sun Tzu said that, Art of War. You know, my psychiatrist says that I have PTSD from my time behind the wire.
Wait, weren't you in the Air Force?
Hey, f you, buddy. I knew this was gotcha journalism. We ain't gonna gotch me. Let me ask you a question. How did you sleep between April 2001 and May of 2007?
I don't know. Pretty good, I guess.
That's because I was defending freedom, you fucking socialist. This is the HK VP9. It's chambered in 9mm, and it is HK's very first attempt at a striker-fired polymer frame pistol. It's not HK's first attempt, but it is the first striker-fired pistol HK has produced since the 1980s. Back then, I was just a lonely sperm cell. H&K's very first striker-fired polymer frame pistol was the VP70, and it was developed in the mid-70s. Now, you guys know that I am a massive Glock fan. I have always found it fascinating that Gustav Glock created the very first polymer frame striker-fired pistol in his garage. Or at least that's what I've been led to believe. Have you ever heard the phrase, if you say something long enough, eventually people will believe it? Well, that's the way that I was. Really, until I started preparing for this video, I truly thought Glocks were the very first polymer frame pistol ever.
What an idiot.
Turns out the VP70 predates the Glock by more than 12 years. So much for being a gun guy. Flash forward 40 years and the VP9 is born, and boy is it beautiful.
You're beautiful.
It's got a full-size slide and a 15-round magazine capacity.
What the hell did you just say?
Now, the VP9 trigger is okay in my opinion. Now, I've heard other YouTubers describe the trigger in this gun as being revolutionary. Some have even said that it is the best factory striker-fired trigger that they have ever seen. I don't know if I really believe that. Now, when you're dry firing the gun, when you're taking up the slack, you can feel two pieces of metal rubbing up against each other. And when you disassemble the gun, you can actually see right there that the top of the trigger bar is dragging on top of the frame. Now, when you're shooting the gun, you really don't notice that, but you definitely notice it when you're dry firing. Now, personally, I did not really like this trigger dry firing it, but a few days ago, we spent several hours at the range shooting this gun, and I kind of fell in love with it. So we switched back and forth pretty frequently between a Glock 19 and the HK VP9, and the trigger in the VP9 is definitely significantly better than it is on my Glock 19, but it just takes a little bit getting used to. The grip on the VP9 is epic. It feels very natural, and it really just feels like my hand belongs on the gun. Compared to a Glock, which is my normal carry gun for the last 10 years, you know, it just feels blocky. There's lots of points where my hand just doesn't really feel very natural. And that's why, as you guys know, I typically end up reshaping and modifying the grip on all of my Glocks. There is no need to do that with the VP9 because it just feels perfect right out of the box. And H&K includes 2 adjustable back straps and 4 adjustable side straps, so it really is possible to create the perfect grip for any person. The HK VP9 is also completely ambidextrous. Listen here, buddy. I was finally starting to enjoy Ryan's class about the VP9 until he started talking about things they just ain't real. I mean, dinosaurs have done been dead for like 75 years, maybe 100. Everybody know that. Ambidextrous ain't around no more. The VP9 has a very large bolt catch on the left side of the frame and a small slide release on the right-hand side. Now, the magazine release is a paddle-style magazine release that is completely ambidextrous. Now, I've really never been a huge fan of this style of magazine release. I've really just felt that it's too close to the trigger. However, on the VP9, it is pretty far, and I kind of like it after I've been using it for a while. Now, this style of magazine release is extremely popular in Europe.
Enjoy the fact that your royal overlords are a frail old woman and a tiny baby.
Now, as I mentioned, I have never really been a big fan of the European style magazine release until I started playing with the VP9. Now, previously, I've had this style magazine release on my Walther P22. It's been okay, but what I really dislike about this magazine release is how close it is to the trigger. As safe and responsible firearms owners, our goal is to keep our finger away from the trigger unless we are ready to shoot. And I've always felt like with the Walther P22 that my finger is just way too close. Now, I've never actually come close to pulling the trigger, but it does scare me a little bit. The VP9 kind of fixes that problem because the trigger is so far away from that magazine release paddle. I find that it's really cool and it works really well. Now, recently, H&K released the HK VP9-B, which has a push-button magazine release for all of us loudmouth Americans that couldn't adapt to the European style. America! The VP9 has really cool and aggressive front and rear slide serrations, and they use HK's patented rear charging supports. I find these charging supports to be pretty cool. I don't really use them. I feel that just the notches in the slide are enough, but I do think it's neat and it's a pretty innovative idea. I find that it's pretty similar to what Smith & Wesson used on the 380 Shield EZ. Just makes it a little bit simpler to kind of operate that slide. The barrel on the VP9 is made out of Canon steel, and it's been cold hammer forged, which, what does that mean in layman's terms? Nobody gives a shit. Similar H&K barrels found on the P30, AKA the John Wick gun, have fired over 90,000 rounds during testing in 2010. I don't know about you, but 90,000 rounds out of one barrel is epically badass. So any ammunition sponsors out there that want to give me 90,000 rounds of ammunition, I would love to test this. I'll text you my address, just shoot me an email. The VP9 comes with two 15-round magazines and an extended Picatinny rail. Now, this Picatinny rail can be used to attach flashlights, lasers, a tactical knife, or any other device you may need in combat.